This is the evening news from Moscow. You're listening to simultaneous interpretation from the Russian by John Glad, and the program is entitled News 1. This is the first channel of the television agency. Today in the headlines. In Moscow, there's a Congress of Army officers taking place. There are student disturbances in Uzbekistan with casualties. Russia's parliament has ratified its latest agreement. Will the minor strikes become a detonator of new social explosions? The situation in Algeria remains tense. In the United States, the latest round of Israeli-Arab talks has taken place. In Croatia, the first division of or group of UN troops has arrived. Today, as of 10 a.m. on Channel 1, you could hear a live broadcast of the Congress of Army Officers in the Palace of Congresses. The fate of the Army, should it be united? This was the chief question which the officers were to vote on. So who will regard their decisions as mandatory? So let's take a look at the discussion. In this enormous Kremlin hall, there is nothing that might distinguish the delegates by their national or geographic origins. But their unanimity was not total. The chief problem, the discussion of whether the army should be united, this point of view was supported by the majority. There were emotional flare-ups in the hall. They might demand, for example, that this person, Mr. Aturashtsev, be removed from the hall. Or there was also the speech of Colonel Oksnes. At one point, they wanted to summon all the presidents of the Commonwealth immediately to come to speak to them. Yeltsin's talk cooled down passions, but many of the officers felt that some of his decisions were too bold. The opinion of the officers at this meeting and of the military leadership is that we need a united armed forces. I have a somewhat different opinion. I think that we need strategic forces, nuclear forces, which might be united, but each republic should have its own conventional forces. Armed forces broken up by republics or the countries would be a meat grinder. This is all political. We must remember what Clausewitz said, that war is a continuation of policy by different means. And the policies mean a confrontation, and that could lead to a clash. The creation of separate forces is something that we have yet to calculate how we could pull that off. Yeltsin proposed his view to the officers today. Here is a clip from his speech. Russia has supported and is supporting a united armed forces. This approach permits us to establish security, and this approach permits us to finance the army, to provide guarantees of the social and legal status of the army. Russia is patient. We do not want a national army, but you must understand, if the majority of republics begin forming their own armies, we will be left with no other alternative than to do the same thing. That is not our choice. There was a lot of passion, which was such that we have not seen something like that since the first meetings of the People's Deputies. Half an hour ago, a resolution was adopted addressed to the armed forces and to the government, calling upon a united armed forces and a united command system. In the Kremlin today and around the Kremlin, there were a lot of ultimatums to be heard. If the politicians, for example, do not resolve the fate of the army will do that itself. Here are the posters that we've seen. No one will save Russia. Here are a lot of, this is around the Kremlin. This the poster says, the army saved the people, be worthy of, another one says, Yeltsin is hunger. Outside the agenda, this says Stalin was right. In the second half of the day, when a wreath was placed at the grave of the unknown soldier, Marshal Shaposhnikov went past not only the honor guard, but a group of people who were supporting the armed forces. She says the fate of the army should be resolved by the people and only by the people. Today in the Kremlin, there were negotiations between Yeltsin and Landsbergis from Landsbergis. The size of the Russian and Lithuanian delegations was such that they were able to discuss a large number of questions, including military ones and economic questions. From the Caucasus, we see that Gamsakhudia's clever maneuver in returning to his favorite city of Zugdidi has strengthened his position, and his call for civil war has worsened the situation. We hope that there will not be bloodletting. In Zugdidi, there are lists being made of those who openly came out against the president. The situation might again worsen, said the chairman of the National Democratic Party of Georgia, Georgy Chanturia, who had formerly been a political prisoner. Gamsakhudia is gathering his supporters or under his banners. Chechnya, according to Chanturia, is ready to help with volunteers and food. There are Chechens in the Gamsakhudi's army. The military council is taking countermeasures. They are sending troops to encircle Zugdidi so as to block the movement of Gamsakhudia's supporters. But according to Chanturia, there would probably not be a full-scale civil war. At the maximum, in a couple of weeks, there will be no more problem of Gamsakhudia either in East or West Georgia. One more quote: the agony of the president will last no more than 2 weeks. This prediction of Chanturia is based on the belief that the military council has already moved their troops into the area. They could take Zugdidi, where Gamsakhudia is, at any moment. But they hope to resolve the situation by political means. But we have to remember the temperament of President Gamsakhudia. As we know from reliable sources, in Kutaisi, when the demonstration was broken up there, 9 persons were wounded, demonstrators. These shots were taken in Zugdidi, where there was a huge demonstration of Gamsakhudia's supporters. The situation in Sukhumi is very tense. It is difficult to appraise or evaluate the things that are happening in Georgia today. We are observers only. We have to recognize the choice of the people.
Эту тему мы продолжим в ночном.
We will continue this topic in our evening broadcast of the news. Now we have news from Tashkent. There's been a tragedy there. The students have been demonstrating. The reason is that they are unprotected from the sharply rising prices in the new market. Yesterday evening in Tashkent, things were very nervous. There were clashes between the students who were protesting the prices and the militia which was sent here. 2 students perished. There were casualties both among the militia and the students. The young people are simply unable to pay the prices that they see in the stores, and they haven't received their stipends.